Okay, I think there was a problem with my mic, but I seem to have fixed it now. So, hello everyone. Uh, so, we are back on schedule with the streams, and I'm actually going to turn the volume down a little bit. I didn't realize how loud I was going to be talking. Um, and let me know if that sounds weird. I have the application I'm running to work the mic is actually for guitars, so it's a little difficult to find something that's clean cut and not distorted or anything. But um, as I was saying, uh, I'm back on schedule, so I'm back here at UCF. I am back uh, working with Jeffrey, and I have all of my setup working, so I have no excuse anymore to not be streaming when I would normally stream. So today, what you see is that I have Jeffrey running with the AI, and these are not the reloader programs. So I want to know if the program crashes because I'm trying to fix that problem. But I have made some changes, and I haven't been seeing any errors. So this is promising, at least in the sense that um, this means that Jeffrey is supposedly learning correctly, which was the big deal because when the errors were occurring, Jeffrey would not be able to sustain decisions because those decisions were being shifted when they were read. They weren't being physically shifted in the data. So technically, Jeffrey could have learned to uh, enhance his decisions anyway, but that was limited by whether or not the variable that would sneak into that spot was of the same um, range of possibility of the variable that should have been there. So now that I've worked out the bugs and what seemed to be happening towards the end after I have it. I kind of want to just draw this out, so let me pull that up. Okay, so oh god, I didn't mean to make that any bigger. Okay, so right now the program reads in information based off of if statements. Now, in a normal situation, the an if statement would read in, so you'd have your if, and then if that was wrong, then it would move down to the else if, or in Python, it's just written elif. And after, if the elif was wrong, then it would keep going through however many elifs you have, and finally you can have an else at the bottom. And so what this basically means that it's asking a question. So if whatever the question is true, then the then the it does whatever the action is. So there would be something in here that would be the action. So you'd have if statement, action, elif statement, action, else statement, action. So then what happens is that when this if statement is wrong, then it moves down and reads the next one. And if this is correct, then it does this action. But if it's incorrect, then it moves on. And what an else statement is that if none of these happen, if none of them from above happen, then the else statement happens. So its action gets called. So basically, this is the idea of how Jeffrey's decision making works. So Um, and it looks like the program is frozen. I'm wondering if I can fix that real quick. Hold on. All right, I might have to restart it. That doesn't. It's not the same as crashing. It might be because I have a lot running right now. Um, all right, there we go. So, like I was saying, so this is the idea of how Jeffrey's brain is working right now, but there's a problem because when Jeffrey scans through the data files in the order of the if statement, if something's true, say that this else if is true, then it stops here. And also, if if the first if was false, I'm going to get a different color so it stands out. So if the first if was false, then this action was never read. So if there's anything that's being read from the text file in this action, then it then this when it goes to read this else if statement, it starts in the wrong spot because there were spaces that it was supposed to read and it didn't. So that was a simple fix. I just made something. So basically, what happens is each individual if statement has its own else statement. So if the if statement is false, then it goes to the else statement, and the else statement or the else statement shifts the data file pointer however far it needs to. But this also meant that I needed to basically make my own kind of else if. So I just set up a variable that if anything is true, then it would be set to 1, and then the rest of the if statements below it would check to see if that variable was 1, and if it was 1, oh no, if it was 0. If it was 0, it would continue to check as if it were a normal situation. But if it's 1, then it would skip over it, and it would move on to the next part, because this would then act as a elif, because if the second elif here is true, then the third elif isn't read and the else statement isn't read. So all of this gets skipped. That was also a problem. So I had to add in something that shifted the rest of the text file for this. But actually, the way I have this set up, that did it for me, because once the check was in place, then all of the remaining if statements were false because the check was 1. So that was a two birds with one stone kind of thing. But I was still getting some errors, and it was confusing me. One of the errors was that I was still getting negative numbers. So as you may have heard in previous streams, the variable mutation function that I have in my parent function, or in my parent program, has a different mutation for each type of variable. So I don't mean like a character and an integer. I mean each type in terms of the game. So or in terms of the if statement. So if there's a variable that is making a decision for a certain part of the if statement, then then that variable can only be between a range of a certain certain integer numbers. So let's say let's take the variable that decides what type of comparison tool it uses. So that's the inequality sign. That's equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to. So there's 6 possible options. So that variable can be any number 1 through 6. So obviously then the mutation can only be any number 1 through 6 because it can't. I wouldn't want it to mutate to something that can't be used. That would just be pointless, and it would waste time. So that the computer would take longer to learn things. So each individual variable has its own specific rule of which numbers it can be between, except for one, which was just a number that the AI could add in if it felt like it. So it could use it as a coordinate. Say, so instead of having Jeffrey's coordinate being compared to one of say this rock's coordinate on screen, then the AI could compare Jeffrey's coordinate to an actual coordinate in the screen. So say, or in the environment. So this light source down in the corner where he starts is actually at it's at 2,500x and 5,000y. So then if the AI wanted Jeffrey to go back to the light source, then it could use something where it compared to see how far away Jeffrey is from that coordinate, or a coordinate close to it. It doesn't necessarily need to be the exact coordinate, and I doubt the AI would catch on to the exact coordinate. But this is just a tool that it could use. But why it was becoming problematic was because I had an adjustment instead of a random change. And what I mean by that is that, let me clear the page here so I can show you guys. In most of them, then there's a pool of numbers to choose from, 1, 2, ... 6, or something like that. And the randomizer goes 1 or 6, and it can choose any number in that pool randomly. There's a even chance of each of them. There's an equal chance of each number in the pool being selected. So what was happening with this other variable was that, say it started at 0, or let's for learning sakes start it at 100. So it started at 100. Then this variable has a pool of numbers it can select from between -10 and 10, and it adds that onto the current digit, or the current variable. So this is nice if you consider the fact that the AI can get closer and closer to the exact coordinate that would be the best. But it's also a problem because the AI can make the number negative. So I added in a secondary clause that said if numbers less than 0, then it would be equal to 0. And what this would do is just make it not negative. And I mean, this shouldn't have been a problem to begin with, because a negative number would have worked in that spot, but because variables were shifting around, it was causing problems. But then it occurred to me that negative numbers don't really apply in this case because the coordinate system is completely positive. I could have left it so that negative numbers could have still been used, but I just felt like it'd be simpler to cut that out completely. But the problem was that I had this written out and it was still giving me negative numbers. So I don't know what the problem was, but I decided to just remove the entire section completely and make it so that the new section is a pool of numbers that are randomly selected from, just like everything else, because I know that's working, and it's between 0 and 5,000. because, um, like I said, I had in mind that this could be used as coordinates, but it can also be used to compare directions, to compare um, distances, and so then, but all of those other variables that it can be used to compare with don't have a value greater than 5,000. The only one that could possibly get greater than 5,000 is the score, and I don't have it set up to where the driver can compare anything with the score. Um, so the score is strictly for the purposes of the fitness test in the child programs. So that was the fix I made for that uh, problem with the negative numbers, and then I was still getting slight a couple errors here and there where it would crash, and I looked at them and it said that the program was still reading in incorrectly. And what's weird is that the instinct reader that I have created was reading in the information fine. There was no errors when the instinct reader was in. So I was able to use that as a comparison. So I looked through the instinct reader and I was trying to find what was different about the how the instinct reader was reading in the text files and how the driver program / child program were reading in the text files. And so what I figured out is that because of that check system I put in, so the check system where it checks, so it basically makes a bunch of if-else statements into a string of elif statements that also have else's in between, because that's not part of the actual coding. So I had to finagle it. Because of that check variable, and also the variable, also checking to see if the AI has requested that many else ifs and elses. So they're basically, I'll write it out. So it would have the if statement, and then so the first thing it would check was the whether or not it was using that elif statement. So it would be elif, and then it would be equal to, and I don't know. So or is it elif greater than or equal to n? So what that does is that it's basically saying that it's checking to see if the AI wants that many elif statements. Because if the AI has not chosen to have that many elif statements, then the driver will not make decisions based off of them. I'm not sure which situation would be better to not have a large number, not have the maximum number of elif statements, but I guess if the AI has a couple good decisions and doesn't want to throw in a fudge decision that will screw things up, that would be understandable. But so that's just one check, and then there's the check that I was talking about. So and then it checks to see if check is equal to 0. So it checks to see if the elif is in use, and then it checks to see if something has already successfully been checked. So if an if statement was true, and then after that, so just imagine that this line is continuing here, then it would check to see if the parameter of that if statement is true. So I have a function that would read in the parameter and spit out either a 1 or a 0, and I would use that. And so if it was equal to 1, then it would do the action. But if not, then it would sorry, I'm looking back and forth at the chat and everything. Um, if it was 0, then it would skip the action and it would adjust the text file to adjust the pointer to the correct position for the next else if statement. But the problem with this is, I think something minor in Python is that um, when probably to save processor time, which makes sense. For some reason, because these two checks were first, if they weren't true, it wasn't reading in the parameter at all. So the parameter, so this would be 5 different numbers in the text file that should have been read, and so it should have bumped the pointer down 5 spots by reading it. But this wasn't happening, so I had to just simply move this to the front of the statement right here, and everything's worked smoothly after that. I don't know if that's actually the problem. I don't know where I would be able to look. I guess I could probably find somebody on the internet that had a similar problem, but that was the way I fixed it. So I don't know if I did anything extraneous that I wasn't aware of, but that is basically what I did. So, but now Jeffery is running smoothly. So there's just the problem of longevity, and the problem is that any program that you just run constantly on your computer is bound to have problems. The Pygame window still crashes if the computer caps out CPU, but that isn't really a problem anymore, considering my new computer. It shouldn't cap out. I mean, if I were playing some high intensive graphics use game, then I can imagine it would still cap out. I don't have the most expensive computer, but it is definitely more powerful than my other computer, which was running Windows 7 and had a decent few years on it. So that's the majority of what I wanted to talk about. I've gotten everything on my list. I did want to randomly mention that I have recently, by recently I mean last night, I have been considering a comic idea. So that would be something I would draw out and then post pictures to my Twitter or something along that lines. I don't think it'd be anything too official. Just kind of the idea of it kind of tickled me. So that's something you might be able to look forward to. I don't want to put anything out there until I actually commit. So I will leave the details of that a mystery. But for now, I guess we'll just sit around for a couple more minutes and watch Jeffery spin around and shoot. I know that he has been making some voyages, and I have been running him in my spare time. I don't want to strictly run him on the stream because the stream is only a maximum of 2 hours every week, assuming that I have something to talk about for that long. And so that would be extremely limiting. And I know that this project is going to be rather long in terms of how long it takes to reach exhaustion. So I want to continue running this as much as I can. And I will be updating you. If you follow me on Twitter, then you will get the minor updates, and I will keep track of everything I see happen that is significant, and I will update you on the Wednesday streams and on the little section before the Saturday streams. So I'll switch this back so you can see more of my face. There we go. And now I'm actually looking at the camera. I'm not sure what's happening over on the left side. Let's see if I can get that going. Maybe not. I do not know what is going on with that. But that's not too important for what we're talking about right now. Um, but anyways, I figured I'll sit here and play a little guitar while Jeffrey continues to spin in circles. But I want to thank you for watching for as much as you've seen so far. I know the mic wasn't working too well in the start, so um, tickle your earballs, if I may. Every time we just look in the mirror, all these lies, they just keep getting clearer. You know it's gone, gone. Oh my. Am I loud and clear? Am I breaking up? Am I still your charm, or am I just bad luck? Are we getting closer? Are we just getting more lost? And I'll show you mine if you show me yours first. Let's compare scars and I'll tell you whose is worse. And let's unwrite these pages and replace them with our own mind. We live on front porches and swing life away. We get by just fine here on minimum wage. If love is a labor, I'll slave till the end. Won't cross these streets until you hold my hand. Been here so long, think that it's time to move. Winter's so cold, summer's over too soon. Let's pack our bags and settle down where palm trees grow. I've got some friends, some that I hardly know. We've had some times, wouldn't trade for the world. We chase these days down with talks of places that we will go. We live on front porches and swing life away. We get by just fine here on minimum wage. If love is a labor, I'll slave till the end. I won't cross these streets until you hold my hand. Until you hold my hand. And I'll show you mine if you show me yours first. Let's compare skies and I'll tell you whose is worse. And let's unwrite these pages and replace them with our own mind. We live on front porches and swing life away. We get by just fine here on minimum wage. If love is a labor, I'll slave till the end. Won't cross these streets until you hold my hand. Swing life away, swing life away, swing life away, swing life away. And with that, I believe I will be signing off. So I want to thank you for watching for the duration here, and I'm sorry for the technical difficulties with the visualization here in the background, but I am happy to inform you that Jeffrey is now running error-free to my knowledge. If that is not true, I will repent that, and I will post that. I will post an update on Twitter and let you know. But as of right now, Jeffrey is running is running completely error-free. So thank you for watching,